I'm afraid to read like really extremely taboo books, right? One reason being that I don't think I'm mentally prepared to read them. And the other reason is that I might end up liking them more than I'm okay with admitting, right? So please don't judge me. Hey everyone, it's my Chua and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be recommending some of the best forbidden/taboo books that I've read so far. Now these books are probably more on the lighter side of taboo because I have not convinced myself to read the extreme taboo ones yet. So if you are dipping your toes into this trope and you just want to slowly ease your way in, keep on watching for these amazing recs. I honestly hate that I feel like I need to address this, but please note that these are fictional books solely for entertainment purposes, so this is a no judgment zone, okay? This first book is an oldie, but definitely still one of the best books I've read, and it is called Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. This book was probably one of the first forbidden romances I read, right? And honestly, it was done so well that it just felt so right? Like you didn't even really question the forbiddenness of this book. In this book, we are following Jordan, okay? And she is kind of this struggling teen just trying to make ends meet. On her 19th birthday, she is left alone to enjoy a movie by herself at the theaters, right? And that is because her boyfriend Cole failed to meet her there. However, while trying to enjoy the film, she actually meets this older man there, right? And he also came alone, so they decide that they're gonna watch it together. Even though they had this instant connection, their time together was short-lived. After her boyfriend kind of got himself into some trouble, they both actually had to move out of their tiny apartment and then move in with Cole's dad, right? And we know that Cole doesn't have a good relationship with his father. And to Jordan's surprise, Cole's father happened to be that man that she met at the theaters, right? The man that she kind of just hit it off with. So in this book, we are following the relationship between Jordan and Cole's dad, okay? So it is kind of like an ex-boyfriend's dad trope, and then obviously we have this age gap trope, which I think is like about 20 years difference. I know what you're thinking, but please just trust me on this. This is a very good romance, okay? And the age gap in here, we actually don't even really feel like there's a big difference because Jordan is actually very mature for her age, right? This book was pretty slow burn and there were a lot of angsty moments, there was a lot of tension, but I was all here for it. Next, I have Voyeur by Fiona, and this book follows our main leads, Oakland and Callum. At the beginning of this book, we see that Oakland is just starting off college as a freshman, right? And so she is desperately trying to find a job so that she can pay for like tuition and rent and whatever, right? But she does refuse by any means money from anybody else. Understanding her situation, Oakland's roommate actually suggests that she works at this sex club, okay? Because they obviously pay extremely well. Of course, Oakland rejects this idea at first, right? But because this club has a lot of strict rules to protect their employees and she isn't going to get forced to do anything that she doesn't want to do, she decides to give this a shot. Now, Callum comes into the picture when we find out that he is a member of this club, which means that he pretty much pays this very expensive fee every month to reap the benefits of this club, right? And we find out why he does this. So this is a voyeur club, okay, which means that people come in to watch other people pretty much like perform sexual acts, okay? And so they can request certain performers or like specific scenes that they want them to play out. There is also this one-way mirror, okay, which means that the performers cannot see you, but you can see the performers. Callum stumbles upon Oakland one night at this club, right? And he is immediately intrigued by her. He is immediately drawn to her, and he can't really like get her out of his mind, okay? Now, at this point, we find out that Callum is actually a professor, okay? So this is where the forbiddenness comes in, right? Of course, on the first day of school, he finds out that this extremely attractive performer is actually one of his students. So now Callum obviously knows who Oakland is and what she does, but Oakland doesn't know who he is, okay? And so this was a very spicy read, but it was also very, very interesting to read as well. The next book I have might be a little bit lighter on the forbidden scale, right? And it is called Waking Olivia by Elizabeth O'Rourke. And this is a coach/runner relationship between Olivia and Will. Olivia was just recently kicked off of her cross-country team at her old college, right? Because she committed this assault or something. And so upon arriving at her new school, she decides to join the track team that Will happens to coach. With a ton of gossip and everything, the girls on her team are obviously very hostile and envious of her because she is the fastest runner on their team. Will knows that Olivia is nothing but trouble, right? She is very stubborn and arrogant, but she is the best runner on the team. Right off the bat, Will is not pleased by her sudden appearance, right? And they both make it really, really hard to maintain a civil relationship. That is until Will notices that there is something off about Olivia, right? She is often showing up to practice in a daze, and she's just not performing at her best. Will can't help but involve himself in her troubles, right? And he soon realizes that Olivia has been sleep running almost every single morning because of her traumatic past. This book was actually very, very angsty, and not only is it forbidden because of their coach/runner relationship, but Will actually has this long-term girlfriend, right? And she doesn't exactly like Olivia. It is a slow burn romance, and there's a lot of push and pull moments, right? But I liked how things wrapped up at the end and how they both just kind of come together to heal each other. This next book is one of my all-time favorite reads, and I will not stop recommending it until I'm convinced that everybody has read this book, okay? So this book is called Still Beating by Jennifer Hartmann. This book is actually kind of like an enemies to lovers relationship, right? And we are following Cora and Dean. They have never gotten along from the start, right? And they are continuously bickering and pulling these little pranks on each other. So at the beginning of this book, we see that Cora is at her sister Mandy's birthday celebration, right? And they are actually at the bar. As everybody departs and leaves, Cora decides to stay back for a few more drinks, right? When she finally decides to leave, she notices that someone actually stole her wallet, right? So now she is unable to catch a ride home. And the only person who picks up her calls is Dean. On their way home, however, they both get attacked and then kidnapped, okay? And then they realize that the attacker is the same guy from outside of the bar that was trying to hit on Cora. I'm going to stop right here and warn you to check the trigger warnings for this book, okay? It is not your typical lighthearted book. They are both forced to endure and do things that they're not willing to do. And so this is a dark romance. Now that we got that out of the way, you're probably wondering how the heck is this a taboo romance, right? So Dean is actually Cora's soon-to-be brother-in-law, right? So she is her sister Mandy's fiance. But after everything that they've gone through, they both start to trauma bond, right? And so that event has forever changed their lives and their relationship. I promise this book is so worth the read. It is by no means not easy to read, right? But you eventually fall in love with the character development and both of their relationship as well. So please go pick up this book. Okay, so this next book, I cannot talk about Taboo without talking about this book. Okay, so this is Credence by Penelope Douglas. This book was definitely a wild one, and we are following Tiernan, who is our main heroine in this book. So at the beginning of this book, we find out that she is left alone when both of her parents decide to commit suicide and leave her living by herself. After this tragic event, Tiernan receives this phone call from Jake, and he explains to her that he is actually her father's step-brother, so he's technically her step-uncle. He gives her the option to come and stay with him. He lives in this cabin in the woods kind of setting, right? And he lives with his two sons, so he's just hey, you know what, we are an option if you'd like to come. And at this point, Tiernan is like, you know, I don't have anything else for me here. I am still underage and I don't have any other family members that I can go live with. And so she's just like, why not? So she does end up packing up her belongings and then moving to live with her uncle and her 2 step cousins, right? And right off the bat, she does meet Noah, and he seems to be more of the friendly type. And then later on, she does meet Caleb as well. So this book is taboo in the sense that Tiernan develops relationships with all 3 of these men at like different points of the book, okay? And so obviously they're supposed to be relatives to her, right? So as you know, this book is a wild one, and she actually does end up with one of the guys at the end, right? And so technically it's not really like reverse harem or anything like that. The next recommendation I have is Twisted Games by Anna Huang. So this is book number 2 of the Twisted series. I do recommend that you read each one of these books in order. Even though it doesn't really connect, you don't necessarily have to. I just feel like you get a better background of each book if you read them in order. In this book, we are following Bridget and Reese. So when I was reading this book, I actually pronounced it in my head as Rise. So Bridget, we actually find out that she is this princess of a country called Eldora. So at the end of book number 1, we find out that Bridget is now declared crown princess, and that pretty much means that she is next in line for the throne. This is a major surprise for Bridget because she always thought that her brother was going to be king, right? And he actually ended up stepping down from the throne because he married a commoner, okay? So that's why Bridget is now in her current predicament. So Reese is actually Bridget's new bodyguard, okay? So this is where the forbiddenness comes in. At the start of the relationship, we do realize that they do not necessarily get along, right? Bridget wants to be that girl that can just be free and do everything as she likes and not have to put up with all of these responsibilities. But Reese is her bodyguard, and so he obviously has to kind of keep her in line and protect her. And so at the beginning of the book, there is some tension there, but eventually they do get together. But we do have that issue still, right? Because obviously he is her bodyguard and she's supposed to marry a royal person. So we follow them throughout this story and we see how the relationship develops. We see when they finally decide to cross that line. And from there, we see if things are going to work out in their favor or not. All right, so those are all of the recommendations I have for this video. I hope that you enjoyed this and I hope that you did get some of these recs and are able to pick them up. As always, thank you so much for watching my videos. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.